Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, special edition Voices from the YouTube comments. It's your opportunity to shine. Join the fray, dive into the dust up. We appreciate all those out there who get busy in the YouTube comment section on the regular. And we have once again plucked a few statements and or questions to consider here today. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, let's go ahead and get started with question number one. Here it is from our guy, Fernando Bermudez, 8546, who says this: a football portal question. Has McGuire and staff closed the door on adding any players, offensive line or defensive line? I agree with your comments that signing multiple freshman players is over with, the portal becoming the path to adding or replacing a core roster. Wonder if players understand the monster they helped create. So we did see an addition recently of Jackson Hughes, the South Carolina transfer, who will be added to the depth chart there along the offensive line. And Chris, I know you've described many times over the last weeks, months, year, I don't know, how creative a coaching staff can be if there is an opportunity to add a guy they feel like can help, maybe even if your scholarship spots are taken. So kind of hard to rule out some stuff, I suppose, or never say never. But what are you saying here about this specifically in the trenches?
I think at this point you don't have any scholarships to give. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot add players to your roster, especially, in some cases, meaningful players to your roster. I don't know if there are any offensive linemen or defensive linemen that are out there that would fit the bill of you wanting to do whatever you could to add. I think if one presented itself, I think you would be in play for it, but you probably wouldn't be alone there. I do think this isn't what they asked, but Fernando, I would tell you that, as far as adding to your roster, I still think there is a need for a potential DB. Okay. I think that there is also, Cowan, a situation where this is case-to-case basis, man. You may not necessarily have a need, but if the right guy becomes available, or like a DB that you may be in on right now that was a receiver and then gets into the portal and says, man, I think I want to be a DB now, and he was a wideout, I think you go, oh, okay then. There's just some different things that, or if you got a girlfriend on Texas Tech softball team and you're like, I kind of like the Red Raiders.
Powerful motivator.
Yeah. Again, it needs to make sense. It needs to fit. I think you have to, because a lot of times when coaches set up a recruiting class, they say we win all these positions, and then as it starts to dwindle down and you have fewer spots left, they'll kind of do the whole BPA model, which is best player available. So if there is just a really good player at whatever position that becomes available, then I could see you. But as far as offensive lineman, defensive line, sure, if one presented itself, but I do think you potentially have a need, or maybe this is more BPA on the DB that you may be trying to bring in here as a walk-on. Gotcha. One of those things. And that's where the collectives and the Matador Club and NIL and all those things can kind of bridge the gap potentially. I think Joey has done a great job of getting kids in. And if you Tyree Wilson is the best example. And this was before there was a collective or NIL. He walked on, and then he ended up leaving here as the 7th pick in the draft. So he didn't have to walk on, but for just a few months, right? But it's just like, so anyway, I think there's different ways to. The player acquisition business is now 365, folks.
That's right. That's right. And that's why some programs have someone with the title of general manager, which was like speaking Spanish to a college coach from a bygone era.
James Blanchard. Yeah, James Blanchard stands on business all year long.
All right. Appreciate the question there. Onward to question number 2. This one is from our guy, Yak Yak Yakker. That's an official pronunciation. I've been practicing it in the office. Has anyone ever been successful platooning an offensive line? Chris, we've been talking a lot about trying to find the best 5 guys and then obviously some depth rounding that out. But the question is about platooning an offensive line. Similar concept to the defensive line. The question continues, get fresh legs out there. Definitely harder because the offensive line tends to be based more on how the guys work together than on effort. But if you could say these 8 or 9 guys are interchangeable, would you try it? How does that sit with you?
I can't say that it's never worked. I'm just unaware of it. I asked a few people when I saw this question. They were unaware of anything. I think maybe you could get away with this at a lower level than a high Division I college level, just because of kind of what is stated here. There's so much rhythm and chemistry and different blitz pickups and calls. And if we just want to get right down to it, there's not that many quality offensive linemen out there in the world. And when you have some that have some experience, you hold on to them for dear life and you let them play together for as long as you can do that. I mean, but I'm always going to pick the Louis Vasquez, Rylan Reed at offensive tackle, Stephen Hamby with Brandon Carter and Marlon Wynn at guard, like concept over an 8 or 9. I don't know if it's realistic to ever think that you could have, because to me, if you have 8 or 9, to me, you don't have a very good offensive line. That's the way I would read into that, because no one really out there is going to have 8 or 9 like dudes that should be starting or playing or experienced or whatever the case may be. That would be a bit of a unicorn type scenario. Not that it doesn't exist, and I'm sure there's 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guys at a lot of schools going, I'm just as good as homeboy at left tackle or center or whatever, but that's just extremely rare. Why is Oklahoma State getting so much credit for this coming up season is because all 5 starters on the offensive line are back. Kansas State had the same thing. I just think there's something about that. But you can easier to do that with like a 6th guy or 7th guy, maybe, and we've seen Tech do that on occasion. I think so-and-so's getting close. I'm going to give him every 3rd series. I'm going to kind of work him in and get some of that experience. We're not going to try to upset the apple cart or anything like that. But wholesale or just getting that deep is extremely rare. Because to me, if you're doing that, you just don't have what you had hoped as a starting 5.
Yeah, for starters, the 8 or 9 number is probably too big a one to really consider. Maybe, like you said, a 6 or a 7. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, before he became a full-time starter, wasn't Brandon Carter like kind of a 6th guy that was getting some run?
Every team is going to operate in that you're going to go into a game with 8 offensive linemen or 7 that fill the following. Like this guy is going to be our swing tackle. This guy's going to be our swing interior guy. And then some may even go so far as like he's our backup center. So if something were to happen, you've got somebody that can play right or left tackle or all 3 interior spots or just one of the guard spots or somebody that just plays center. So you've got that whole situation available to you, but there's a reason that those guys aren't starting per se. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I think like you described and sort of like you hear said often about the quarterback spot, if you have 2, you don't have 1, you want those 5 guys to have separated themselves. And if you got 8 or 9 that are quote unquote interchangeable, then that probably means you haven't found obviously those 5 that were really separating themselves from the pack. And I just think the chemistry and the synergy, the feel for the guy that you're playing beside, the communication that comes with that, but the instinct as well once the ball is snapped is so important, and maybe as important or more important than any other spot on the roster. So I don't think I would want to try it if it was just
and you remember, you're a Cowboy fan. You remember
yes.
the Mark Stepnoski, Eric Williams, Larry Allen days, Nate Newton. It was the same dudes just mauling people over and over and over and over again. And Emmitt Smith was like, man, I'm pretty good, but you boys are making my life real easy. I mean, that's just what I would envision is if you could pick it. I think, the platoon thing, it sounds good in theory, but I just think at a much lower level, middle school, high school, something like that, you could probably, but even then it's hard to find quality big people. You just not many of them out there that can move like you need to move, or I practice every day and understanding like all the things that come at a big time D1 athlete. And there's different experience levels. Again, back to Roman Reigns, man, and WWE. There's levels to this, right? So yeah.
Okay, appreciate that question, and we have uno mas to consider. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite events again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, it's always at the lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that last beer at the tailgate at your own pace, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. They give you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast and easy, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. This, Chris, is a which is more likely kind of question, so we'll put on our speculating cap. This is from Zach Gibson, 4150. Who says, what do you think will come first? Minor league system of players as employees, talking on the college level, of course, or sports gambling is legal in Texas? These are two wide-ranging options, obviously, but which do you think there's a better chance to see sooner?
Well, you do kind of have a minor league system in place now. It's just not what it's called. Now, there is the caveat that the question here is asked about employees.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a bit tricky, but you do kind of have a de facto minor league system now, whether that be group of five, junior college. I mean, heck, the Big Ten and the SEC may view the ACC and the Big 12 as a minor league system. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. I think, though, that I think the gambling thing in Texas is not far off at all. And here's why I say that. Do you know who the name? Do you know the name Marian Adelson is?
I do not.
She is worth, I would say, $1 gazillion. She also just recently purchased the Dallas Mavericks. They also have land in a different area, basically in Irving, I think, for a giant potential new arena and hotel casino, like let your mind wander.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a fairly recent purchase, but she's of the Sands Corporation in Vegas. You don't make this purchase unless you kind of, wink, wink, kind of know what's coming down the pike, as they say.
Yeah.
I think that, I think that is in the works. I think they kind of have a feel, whether it be politically or I can't imagine, I'm going to say this, so pardon the pun. I can't imagine that she would have gambled on said purchase in that, maybe pretty soon they'll have. No, I think they probably know in the next year or three that's what's happening. To what extent that looks like, I'm not real sure, because you can already go to horse races right there in the Metroplex, and that's as much, and play the lottery and all that. So I just, I think, though, that it's some form. I think that's really close to happening. As far as the employee thing,
interesting.
I don't know if we know all that just yet. That seems to be so gray, and I don't know if I'm prepared to say that's going to happen just yet. But there's other things coming with all that are absolutely in the works. I just don't know if I would be right if I said, oh, yeah, there's going to be a minor league system that called employees. I think the gambling thing is more of a sure thing than the other.
Interesting. And not the option that I thought you would take. I really almost felt like, I don't know about the minor league aspect of it, but the employee aspect of it, I feel like is only a matter of time. And I probably would have gone the other route, but what you're saying makes sense. So let us know what you think out there in the YouTube comments. how you see it and what your answer would be to any of the above. Appreciate the comments and questions every day. As always, keep them coming. We'll do it again about a week from now. Chris, thanks for a little bonus time, man. Appreciate you.
I'm here for some bonus, man, and I'm here for some gambling talk anytime. I love it, and I'm here to, I guess, surprise you.
I like it.
That's right. That's right. Keep you guessing.
That's right. After all these years together, you still find ways to surprise me, and that's how you keep spice in a relationship. All right, thanks for being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.